Hey, what's going on, guys? Well, today I'm going to do a redo video of the ViperSharp sharpening system. Now, I talked about this in a couple different videos, and I had some videos that I took down, and a lot of people didn't really know what was going on. So to give you a real quick update, I got this system a long time ago when I was still a prototype. The owner, Mike, wanted me to check it out, see what I thought of it. I liked it. I did a video on it back then when he was doing a Kickstarter project on it, trying to get it funded. I was very impressed. I was mostly impressed with the angle finder, which I have not seen previous to getting his little system. And I thought that was very cool. It took a lot of guesswork out of sharpening systems and sharpening in general. Once you kind of get an understanding of how to sharpen a knife, you can use that knowledge to use any system, whether it's just freehand with some stones or an actual angle system like this. The idea behind this is not new, okay? It's kind of like reinventing the wheel, but making it smoother. It's not so rough around the edges. The smoother the wheel, the better it works, right? And I give Mike some credit because he did, do some upgrades basically to the system, problems that he had using other people's systems, and he basically tweaked it and made it a little bit better. There are some things I don't like about the system still from day one, and that is the base. I just don't like the base. It's supposed to be clamped to a table or screwed down to a piece of wood. I didn't come with a clamp, so I don't have a clamp, offhand to use. Yeah, you can remedy these things very simply, but because it didn't come with one, that's why I consider it to be a negative or a gripe, on how it works. I don't have just a piece of wood laying around, and I don't have a specific workbench in my situation that I can just bolt it down to or screw it down to. So when I'm using the system, I kind of just put my hand, I rest my wrist on here, and I hold the back portion here, and it's somewhat stable. It still moves around a little bit, and it's, again, a huge deal for me because it's not comfortable to use. Now, that being said, if you use it how it's intended to be used, by screwing it down to a workbench or a solid place, or using some C-clamps or something like that, or even just spring clamps to keep it to the edge of the table, that will remedy that problem. So it's not like a really difficult thing to overcome, but it's just something that I have to point out because they're not provided with the system, so therefore I see it as somewhat of a negative thing. I've been spending probably a little over an hour right now, about an hour and 15 minutes, sharpening a variety of different knives, different sizes, different steels. I have some kitchen knives here, all right, some Hen and Rooster, much softer steel on that. I have a Tops knife here, the Cub, CRKT Ruger fixed blade, and this is supposed to sharpen up to 8 inches, so I have nothing that's longer than 8 inches. I do have some different folders, mostly soft steel. I did do one knife that had some 154 cm, and I was having a little bit more difficulty with that because it is a harder steel, so I'm going to go revisit that later after I'm done sharpening this knife. I want to give you a demo. All right, this is again just a little Hen and Rooster International Series kitchen knife. This is a little paring knife. All right, I have it clamped in. I'm just going to go over again how this works, but I want to give you some unedited footage here from start to finish to show you the results. He did, after my last video that was taken down, and the reason it was taken down is because I had misinformation in that video. Some people drew their own conclusions and thought, well, hey, I did a review, the person who sent it didn't like it, so I took it down. It's not clear cut like that, it's not black and white. I did have misinformation. I didn't use the system properly, the review was extremely rushed, and there was just misinformation about sharpening in general. I was just off my game that day, I guess. And for that reason, I didn't want to leave bad information up. So I got rid of it to redo it at a later point, which is right now. This is the later point. So I'm getting much more familiar with the system, with lots of use on it as the actual production version is. Like I said, I liked it back when it was a prototype. I used it on some softer steels. As time went on, the more use I got on it, the more gripes I had with it here and there. But it's time to redo it, and that's what we're doing right now. So the two stones that were resent to me after that video, which I have soaking in water here, is a 200 grit stone, all right, the white one, and then this yellow one, or actually it's pinkish. This is the 600 grit, okay? So I don't have anything finer than 6, so that's what you have to base this on as far as the results. He does have finer stones that will produce a finer edge, but this is what I have available to me at the moment. And 600 grit should be totally adequate for all these kitchen knives and some of the fixed blades there. I do like a little bit of a finer edge, on my folders and such. But I'm gonna give you a demo with this kitchen knife, and it should be totally fine, again, with a 600 grit edge. It'll be toothy, but it should cleanly slice through paper, and that's what we're gonna base it on, the performance. So right now, this is how it is. Let me move this out of the way here. Grab a fresh piece of paper. All right, so I can give you a before. Okay. So here's the before. It is quite, I'm not trying to make this dramatic, it's dull. All right, it's very dull, that's why I grabbed it. All right, let's pierce it and get it cut so you can see I'm not just playing around here. All right, so there's our edge. All right, pretty embarrassing edge. So that's our starting point. I'll put that piece of paper off to the side. We'll use that again in a little bit. Just trying to think of some different thoughts on this since I've been using it. One issue I have with the larger blades, and you'll see it in this hen and rooster, and this is for me rushing, and I think this is one of the problems I had when I first used it, is when I revisited this, like I said, about an hour and 20 minutes ago now, I started sharpening, and I was kind of just going at too fast of a pace, and what was happening is I was scratching the heck out of the blade. You can see right here, all these little angle scratches on there. That's because the stone is twisting. So let's put the 200 on here. All right, you can see they just clip right on. Well, let's try that again. They should kind of snap in. It is on there though. So what's happening is, let me put this in the system. All right. So one thing I do really like about this though is that this slides in and out. All right, it makes it a lot easier to keep a consistent angle. Okay, when you have to take the knife out of the guide and reattach it, like in some Lancy systems, you do get little variations in your edge angle, which makes it a little bit harder to keep a consistent angle and get it nice and sharp. So what was happening is when I was sharpening, I was going a little bit too fast. When I was going too fast, this was actually rotating or turning. So if I give you this view, all right, so I'm coming across and then I would turn it. And when I turned it, it would scratch the blade. So I just have to go really slow. I learned that lesson right away as I got some of the scratches on that Sandoku knife. But once you take your time, and that's the whole thing, I mean, it should pretty much be common sense, right, with all sharpening systems. If you take your time, really pay attention to what you're doing, it should be okay, right? So that's what we're gonna do right now. That's what I did with the other knives, and it actually turned out really nice. Let me give you a quick shot of this cub. Again, with just a 600, got a nice razor's edge now. All right, so let me pick up that piece of paper so I don't forget, and we'll get sharpening on this knife here. All right, so it's been soaking in water. All right, we are doing wet sharpening here. You can use water or oil. All right, actually, is this the angle that I want? Yes, it is. Okay, so start from the heel here, work your way up. It's a little bit harder with the larger blades, and again, you can see how this is twisting on me a little bit. But holding it like this, getting this kind of grip on there, it's totally stable. It's not preferred. Again, not really how it's meant to be used. It's supposed to be nailed down, screwed down, bolted down to something, clamped. You know, that would make it a lot easier for you, but I don't want this thing moving, and this is the best way that I can secure it down. And again, one of the reasons why I prefer other systems, right? So sharpen this one side here. I was saying before is that with the longer blades, it's hard with the shorter stone. And again, this is only supposed to be good up to 8-inch blades because of how long this rod is. It's supposed to be kind of a compact system. It's a travel type system. And again, a gripe with the base. If you're traveling somewhere, you might not have access to, you know, planks of wood or boards. You know, so that was why that was a big gripe of mine. It's something I wanted to point out. All right. The shorter blades, there's not really any issues at all as far as this twisting. It was the larger ones because as I was getting across, you know, the whole length of the blade there, again, it would kind of turn on me a little bit, be inconsistent. All right. So with this 200 grit stone, do a few more passes. We'll flip it over. I'll clean the stone. And we'll re-wet it. And the whole idea of using, you know, oil or water is just to keep the stone from clogging up. Okay, the metal little filings and the metal dust that you're creating by sharpening can kind of float on the top of the stone as opposed to clog up the pores, because then it won't be cutting anymore. So I'm going kind of heavy on this side just to create a nice even burr all across. That should be good for now. Alright, sorry about that. Someone's at the door. But just stop there anyway. Created a burr on the other side, which I can feel now. Feels pretty consistent. Alright, let's clean this up a little bit. I'm going to clean the stone as well. So the middle of the stone. I'll wash the stone off. Put that back in there. Alright, clean our edge up a little bit. Just wiping it with a clean rag. Okay, so now I'm going to do this side here. Okay. Again, get my good grip on here. Another gripe I had was this knob being on top. I understand it allows proper pressure on the edge here, but I just don't like the position. It could just be because I'm so used to the Edge Pro Apex that I'm used to the knob being on the end. Maybe it's just a preference thing. It's not the end of the world, but it's just certainly something that I'm not fond of. One thing I will say though is it's very smooth in the action here. This rod pivoting, there's no like resistance in any way, which is really nice. I have had other systems that are not nearly as smooth, so that's definitely a positive. I don't know if you could tell, but this also freely spins too, so as my angle changes, it just moves with it, which is nice. So again, these are little improvements on this type of sharpening system. So there are definitely things I like about this still, since I first got it. It's not a bad sharpening system, I prefer other ones. That's really what it comes down to. It's not a personal attack on the creator or its design or anything, it's just my opinion. And that's what you have. When you have something that's reviewed, you have someone's opinion on it, right? Alright, so here's another problem too. Now with the knife out of here, this wants to tilt because I don't have it mounted down. Alright, so again, just cleaning off the blade here. Clean the stone again. Let it soak for a second. We'll check our edge. I think I'll do a couple passes on either side again, and then we'll switch over to the 600. Start smoothing out that edge a little bit. Okay. Oops. Okay. Feels definitely sharper, pretty even. Alright, let's give this another shot. Let's do this side first. It's always good to alternate properly, right? Okay. I'm just using the weight of the stone. I'm not pushing down very hard at all. I'm just kind of letting it do its work. You don't need to use a lot of pressure at all. With any system, not just this one. You don't want to let the stone do its work, right? You don't want to crank down on it. little awkward doing this behind the camera as well. It is much more comfortable when you're not filming it. Can't say that. It's very uncomfortable right now just because of my position, but that's only so I can get this first perspective, or first person perspective for you guys. Alright, so again, you can see the system's leaning. I guess you can kind of try to counterbalance that. Alright. I think I hit it pretty consistently all throughout the edge. It's definitely sharper. Give you a quick little cut with this, but the 200 is going to be pretty damn rough. It should be better, yeah, a little better than when we started for sure. Right. All right, but we're nowhere near where we need to be. So let's put this back in here. All right. Pop our stone off. We're going to clean that. So I'm going to use that for the next knife. Starting at the 200. Okay. Make sure 600 is nice and clean. Okay. There we go. So this one snaps in really nice. This one, the other one doesn't have that audible snap, but it is in there nice and securely. All right. So, and that's the other thing too. It's definitely a positive that a lot of people like about this particular system is the fact that you can change out the stones pretty easily. My first concern, and when I made the second video talking about how I didn't like it, and I was saying how the stones were weak, the plastic backing had broke. I literally dropped it on accident, as some people may do. You know, you drop things, it's part of life. It broke, and that was my big concern. I focused on that a lot in the video that I took down, you know, and breaking them in half and showing that they're, you know, low quality and stuff like that. It wasn't really necessary. Clearly, you're not going to be doing the same thing. But the point that I was trying to drive home is that, hey, if you drop it like me, you're out of stone. You know, it's just something that happened. But yeah, I mean, it is easy to change out these stones. It is nice, especially like right now, I'm sharpening tons of knives. So, you don't want to spend the extra time swapping the stones back and forth, you know. So, again, a positive on this system, it is easy to use. I will say that. You're clamping, you know, your knife into this guide right here, and you're just swapping it to do the other side. It is very consistent as far as the edge angle. Once you set your angle, you do stay on that path. And the stones, as far as replacing them, because there's not a whole lot of stone here, they're relatively inexpensive, you know, in comparison to a lot of other companies and different replacement stones. But they're not that big. I mean, this whole system is supposed to be kind of a travel system, and I think it really is best suited for smaller knives with softer steels. And you may say, well, okay, well, you know, I like my 12-inch bladed M4 fixed blade. That's fine. But there are way more people out there that have inexpensive, you know, EDC knives. When I say inexpensive, I'm talking about $100 or less. In most cases, $50 or less. You know, a lot of 440C, AUS 8, things like that. This system would be totally fine for those individuals. You know, smaller blades, softer steels. It does excel. It does work a lot better than a lot of systems out there. Price, though, if you haven't seen the other videos, I believe right now it's $185 for the system. With a couple stones, and that's very pricey, you know, much more expensive than a lot of other systems similar to this. The other systems may have advantages this one doesn't. It may have disadvantages. You know, there's things about this system that people like. It really comes down to preference. The one thing I'm trying to show here is whether this sharpens knives or not, right? Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Will it make my knife go from dull to sharp? Well, yeah, it certainly will, but it'll be a lot harder if you have, you know, the harder, higher end steels. Actually, you know what? Let's wash the stone again. Clean it off. Get all that metal dust off of there. So a nice clean surface to work with. All right, back to business here. So yeah, I mean, advantages, it's definitely easy to use. It's very smooth to use, and it holds a very consistent angle. Those are all very good things. The big thing for me though is, again, that base. Said, you know, enough by now. I'm sure you get the point, but it's enough of a downside for me not to want to take this one out to use it. You know what I mean? The advantages that this system has over other ones is lost to me just because I know I have to hold it like this, you know? So it becomes a little bit of a nuisance. Let's take this off, check it out real quick. Definitely getting there. We're going to need some more passes, but I got to work on the bottom here for certain a little bit more. But yeah, it's definitely sharpening the knife. Okay, you know, let me moisten this stone again. Clean it off. And at the end here, I'll do, of course, another demo, cut demo on that paper. And you know, I should point out that there are many different levels of knife enthusiasts, you know. I would say the majority of people out there, they're looking for a knife to be sharp enough to cut open their boxes, slice open their mail, you know, stuff like that. And then there's people who are obsessed with knives and their edges, and they need the perfect angle, and they need a nice polished finish. You know, they need it hair-splitting sharp. It's not the average person. That is a select few out there that do obsess over stuff like that. And those are the people that are more likely to spend $400 or $500 or more on sharpening systems and or a collection of sharpening equipment. You know, the idea here is it's supposed to be for the average guy, right? Very simple person just wants a nice edge on their knife. Now with that in mind, that's when I think of stuff like the Spyderco SharpMaker, although a completely different system, which it leaves more room for error, because the user has to be able to keep a steady hand on something like the SharpMaker. But it's more reasonably priced. When I say reasonably priced, it's just, I mean, everything's relevant. Obviously, manufacturing costs are very high. This is made in the USA, which is a big consideration for costs and stuff like that. So you say, yeah, it's an expensive system. I don't know exactly how much money the owner is making on each system. That's none of my business. It doesn't really matter. You know, at the end of the day, as a consumer, you have the choice to either buy something or not buy something. But everyone's in business to make money. You know, I'm sure he's not making a killing off of these, but you have to be compensated, right? That's why you're doing it. And if you're in the process, you know, you can make a living and feed your family, as well as give people a cool, usable tool. That's great, right? That's what everyone's looking to do who are in business. But anyway, I'm just saying that's something that some people may point out. It's like, oh man, he's making too much money off this. I don't know what he's making. You don't know what he's making. I do know manufacturing costs are high. So whatever his profit margin is, that's his business. It doesn't really matter to me, as long as the system works, right? All right. Let's give this another test real quick. The paper cutting test. Again, let that stone soak. All right. The finer the grit, you really should clean it off even more often, because those you know, the grain inside of the stone, all those little nooks and crannies and stuff are a lot smaller, obviously, so they clog faster. Some people may argue it's the other way around, right? The bigger the holes, the faster it clogs. Well, from my experience, the very fine stones, they need to be washed a little bit more often. All right, so let's get that piece of paper again and see where we are at right now. Much better. Still needs some work. think I have to focus a little bit more towards the base of the blade there. Try our tip. Yeah, a little bit towards the base, a little bit towards the tip. As I'm going through, naturally, most of my pressure is towards the middle, and the middle is pretty darn sharp right now. But down here where I'm starting, I don't have as much pressure into each pass, you know, and same thing with the tip. I'm kind of letting off on pressure towards the tip. So I'm going to focus a little bit on both of those areas right now. You should get a pretty consistent edge. All right, actually pop this in here like that. All right. So again, just focusing on the base and the tip a little bit here. And I'll do some large passes across the entire blade. All right, we'll flip it. All right, give myself a little stretch here since my back's in a weird position. Okay. Same thing on this side. Just we'll focus a little bit towards the base here and the tip. Focusing on the sharpening, I don't know what you guys can actually see in the viewfinder. Hopefully most of what I was doing is on the screen here. All right. Okay, flip it over. And again, you see my base getting twisted. Easy fix. Get some clamps. A recommendation to Mike for these systems is possibly adding some clamps to go with the system, just in case you are using this for travel. Even if you have something at home that works, you know, of course you might not be able to have that, you know, when you travel. So it'd just be nice. There's room in it gives you a nice hard case when you get these systems. So there's room in there for a couple C-clamps, so you can kind of clamp it to the end of the table, wherever you are. Just a suggestion, fairly inexpensive. All right. Ooh, much better on the tip. Do another paper cut test here, but I know this looks strange, thinking, man, you gotta cut yourself, but I learned this technique from someone recently. It does work when you, especially with a 600 grit. If you have a really fine edge, this might not work for you, but if you like your edges kind of toothy, you could use the skin. You know, when you grip down on it, obviously not too hard, you gotta cut yourself, but if you move back and forth and your finger slides, those teeth aren't grabbing you. All right, but when you have kind of a locked down position here, it does not want to move. It grabs onto the skin. I don't necessarily recommend that for you guys, in case you cut yourself. I'll get a fresh piece of paper here. Actually cut this in half. A nice clean cut. Whoops. Got a heel all the way down at the base. I think I'm missing with the stone. Yeah, the very, very base I'm missing, so I gotta go back and hit that again. Let's try the tip here. Tip's definitely better, just still needs some work. All right, so I'm gonna need some more passes here. So let me get some fresh paper. I'll show you a couple of these. This is the Sandoku knife. This is the first knife that I sharpened with the system, and that's where I got, again, those scratches on there, but that's user error and rushing. All right, so let's cut in half. Oops. Same steel as that paring knife, by the way. With the 600 grit stone, it got reasonably sharp. That's a very usable edge, right? Let's try something else. This is the CRKT Ruger. All right, same thing, 600 grit stone. Actually turned out a little bit better. Okay, took my time on this because it has that black coating I did not want to scratch up. But yeah, it's a very usable edge. Let's see, the Cub. Same thing, 600 grit stone, nice and toothy. Oops. Still a very usable edge. Fresh piece of paper here. All right, that works. And of course, what you just saw me sharpen, still very usable edge. Razor sharp, no. Definitely not razor sharp by any means, but a usable edge. And to be totally honest, my back is completely like cramping up because I'm hovering over this thing sharpening. So I will spend a little bit more time after I turn the camera off and move the tripod. And I can get this basically just as sharp as some of these other knives here, as far as the performance. So it'll cleanly slice through some paper here. It'll be totally fine as far as food prep's concerned. All right, guys, so I have about another 20 minutes or so of usage on this thing, just touching up a couple edges here. I want to give my final thoughts and opinions on the ViperSharp sharpening system. I will say it's a very good system in general, and it is better than a lot of systems that are out there in the market. The improvements Mike made to this type of angle system have been good, and I think a lot of people would get this and they would enjoy it very much. However, that being said, this really is meant to be bolted down, screwed down, what have you, for stability. Because I did not do that, because I refuse to do that, because I don't think it should be necessary to do something like that. I used it how I used it, and how I used it, holding on to it, it was uncomfortable. Even if I had bolted this down, I don't like the positioning on the knob here. So I just find something like the Edge Pro Apex to be more comfortable. It doesn't mean this is ineffective. It just means that I have a preference for those other systems. So for me, I'm not a fan of this, and that's okay. Just like my last video, it did do a much better job of sharpening than the first time I tried it, because the first time was rushed, and it wasn't a very good review. That's why I took it down. Misinformation, poorly used product, that doesn't equal a fair assessment of what it's capable of. Now that I've actually really focused on this and set time aside for it and used it much more, I did find it was very effective, again, on much smaller knives and, generally speaking, softer steels. You could sharpen super steels with these stones. It's just going to take you a lot longer. That's all. It's just a matter of how much time you're willing to invest in this. But that's not a hit on this particular system. That's just you as a person wanting to sharpen knives. Some people want to sharpen knives in 5 minutes. Some people don't mind spending an hour to make sure it's going to be done right. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not for me. I personally don't like the design, but it is very usable. It's a very functional system. And as I've said before, if you're interested in it, take a gamble. If you don't like it, I'm sure Mike will let you, give you a refund and let you return the thing. So if you do like supporting a small American business, he can't compete in the price range with a lot of these huge companies out there. I understand that. That's why the price is what it is. If he was a huge company, the same system may be made for 80 bucks, who knows? But that's just not how it is right now. So if you're interested in this one, you got to fork over, the money that they cost. It's like everything else, but you're not going to get a true understanding of what this thing does until you get one in your hands. So if you are curious about it, I do recommend getting one still, with the knowledge that you have a really good chance of being able to return it if you are unsatisfied with it. And that can't be said with a lot of the cheaper stuff out there. So there's something to be said about that, and customer service is a big deal for a lot of people out there, so at least you do have that to fall back on. It's not like you're just going to be stuck with it and out of all that money. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I prefer other systems more. I find them to be more comfortable, and it could be something as simple as a couple suction cups on the bottom of this, that would make the world of a difference. So I can come out and I can use it on multiple different surfaces and have it nice and stable. But because I didn't have it stable and I had to hold it like this, it just became very uncomfortable. But again, you know, even if it was stable, I don't like the knob position. I much prefer it on the end, like the Apex, as well as some other systems out there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I highly recommend, if you have this system, or highly suggest you post your comments down below. Don't just take my word for it. This is one man's opinion with the experience I've had with it. My opinions may be slightly different if I did mount this to a workbench or something, you know, but I used it exactly how I normally would use it, and those are my thoughts on it. So, not a fan, but that's okay. You know, a lot of people out there still like them. So even though I'm not a huge fan of this, I do want to give a very special thank you to Mike for being patient with me, for sending me out more stones, even though I unnecessarily broke his other ones. You know, he's a stand-up guy, and I truly believe that he's just trying to put a good product out there and fix some issues that he's had with other sharpening systems. You know, just a guy who uses knives, who wants to create a good product. Can't blame him for that, right? So like I said, if you're curious, get one and see what you think of it yourself. But these are my opinions and only my opinions. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon. Take care.